Hey, I'm Dr. Rumsey, and this lecture is about the job search project. I'm going to go through the slides fairly quickly and give you sort of the ins and outs of the 3 different written artifacts that you need to produce for this assignment. Keep in mind that there are a lot of slides in this, and I'm going to go quickly, and so I encourage you to go back and reread the slides just on their own, aside from this video. So let's get started. As you can see here, there's a description of what I'm going to be doing. I just told you that. Okay, so there's 3 tasks that you're going to be doing in this assignment. The first one is that you need to find an actual job that is posted, say on monster.com or some other place, for an actual company. Okay, or an internship. Most of you are, if this is a 200 level class, some of you are taking it way late and some of you are taking it right on time. Most of you could at least apply for an internship, so go for that. IndianaIntern.net actually is a great place to look if you don't have any idea how to get started with that. The thing you're going to be doing is learning about the employer that you are applying to. The idea with this is that you're doing several things at once. One, I want you to have a sense of how to apply for a position, whether it be an internship or a job. But 2, I want you to know how to research online and then write a report. Remember, this is technical report writing, and so you're going to be researching the employer and submitting a report to me, and then you're going to be creating a resume and application letter to apply to that company for that position. So you're going to write an investigative report, a resume, and an application letter. These are the deadlines for summer 2020. I might use this video in future semesters, summer semesters, and so make sure you go and look at the slides and look at the course calendar to make sure the dates are correct for your semester. So the purposes with this are to be able to actually define what your purpose is for writing. When you know why your writing becomes much stronger. If you're kind of confused, not just about the assignment, but think about it on the job. If you're confused about what your boss actually wants to see in a particular type of report, you're not going to produce a very good document, right? The other thing is to think about your reader. Who is it that you're sending this to? In this case, it's a potential employer. How does your writing change in order to meet the needs of that potential employer? You're going to be developing content that's accurate and clear and appropriate to this purpose and audience. You're going to be using some research. Now, when I say research, I'm okay with you finding websites. This doesn't mean you need to do scholarly research. In this class, we're not focused on that so much. You can use different types of websites, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. You're going to be using the genres that we talk about, so the report, the resume, and the application letter. And then the idea of this is to give you a little bit of real-world application. Is this exact? No, let's be honest, it's not. But it gives you a sense of writing for a broader audience than just me, your professor. So, one of the things about the research you're going to be doing is you want to find verifiable facts, okay, not opinions. You might think that, say, Google is the best company ever. You know, we can argue about that later. I'm just kidding. But if you can't just say, I think Google is awesome because, and then rattle off your opinion. You need to go and find actual facts that are available on their website and then what others have said about their company. The way that you're going to cite those facts that you find is using IEEE formatting and IEEE citations. There is a document in Important Course Documents on our Brightspace page that describes and shows how to use the citation method. And then the resume and application letter need to be addressed to a real person at the company. You can't just say to whom it may concern. In fact, do not use that phrase. Find a real person, the HR director, whatever, to actually address your documents too. Okay, so there's also formatting guidelines. So there's IEEE citations and there's formatting guidelines. Both of those are available in Important Course Documents. And then if ever there are 2 documents that need to be error-free, okay, I tend to be not so much a grammar Nazi, so to speak. I find that your writing has to be good enough that no one notices any hiccups along the way. I'm not somebody that's going to deduct major points for a missing comma, right? But if ever there are 2 documents that need to be perfect, it is your resume and your application letter, because that is your first impression as a potential employee, and you want to impress them. If there are lots of applicants for a position, and your resume is riddled with error or typos, your chances of getting an interview are reduced significantly. So the report is going to be gathering information and then presenting it. It's a report, right? I mean, you've done reports before for other classes. There's not a whole lot. The thing I like about tech writing, there's not a lot that you have to sort of devise on your own. You're simply reporting the facts that you find. The reason that we're doing this is that when you're on the job market, you can't just walk into an employer's office and say, so tell me about your company, right? You need to go in as prepared as possible to show them that you've done your homework, so to speak, that you are invested and that you're really interested in the position. So say you have an interview with Aptera here in town. You're going to spend some time, if you're smart, looking up Aptera, maybe even know a couple of employees that work there. Ask them about the company. Ask them things that might be relevant to an interview. Impress the person you're interviewing with. So you're going to be using research and resources, and then the memo genre and introductions are two of the genres that you're going to use within the investigative report. So you're going to research, like I've mentioned before. If you currently work for a company, you cannot use it for this assignment. Okay, I know that doesn't seem fair, especially if you just landed a great job. Too bad. It's an assignment, and you need to make sure, because you're learning certain principles here. It's not just about applying for a position. It's learning how to write for a particular audience. And so if you use a company you already work for, even if it's for a different position within that company, then if you regularly call your manager Rick and you text him throughout the day, right? The letter that you write him is not going to be the same letter as if you were applying for a new position. And I want you to have the experience of applying for a new position. So I would like you, for the sake of this assignment, to find a different company and a different employer to apply for. You must research and write about a company that you do not currently work for. I just said that. That's pretty much it. Okay, next slide. So you're going to write a report. The report is going to be 2 to 3 pages. You're going to be writing in memo format, and I will explain what memo format here in a minute. And then you can find, again, the formatting requirements in Brightspace. Also, Chapter 5 of our current textbook has the information that you need just to talk about what memos look like and are. Okay, so here is a sample of a memo. A memo is considered what's called internal correspondence. That means that it is within a company, or in our case, within our classroom. Okay, that means that it's people who already know each other. It tends to be less formal in some ways. It's equally formal, but that's just the audience is different. And so what you see here is that there's a header, obviously, it says memorandum. There's the salutation, so there's the date, to, from, and regards, right? And then there's the content, there's section headings. Notice the section headings are boldface, okay? The reason that you use this in internal correspondence is it's a much more efficient way of writing to someone that you already know within the company. Notice that it does not say dear so-and-so. It does not say dear Dr. Rumsey, and there's no sincerely yours at the bottom. That's because all that information is contained there at the top in the salutation line. This is different than a letter. Don't confuse the two. The one issue you might run into in future endeavors is that a memo and a letter kind of get blurred together in email. Email is one of those formats that is kind of a little bit of both. It's a wonky one. The Netiquette assignment that you're going to be doing in this class, or have done in this class, is a good example of that, and you can read about that elsewhere. Okay, so you're going to have a heading that conforms to the guidelines, an introduction that states the objective and scope of the report. You're going to have a history. You're going to look up where have they been, where did they start, what have they become over time. You get the idea, the history. Products or services that they do. This is also a place if you are struggling to find information because the company's small, but it's been around a long time, just there's no like newspaper articles about them, you could research the product itself. So suppose they do some innovative thing with 3D printing. Well, if you're not finding a lot about the company, in this section you could add a paragraph that you gather information on the kind of 3D printing that they use. That would be an option. Your sense of what the culture is. When I say the culture, I'm talking about how is it? Is it hierarchical? Is there a president, a vice president, all on down the line? Is it more flat where everybody's an equal partner? Is it how are people paid? What are the benefits? Those sorts of things. and then a conclusion. And in the conclusion, because this is a memo between you, the student, and me, the professor, about the company, I want you to actually take stock of the skills that you have, think about why you applied for the company, would you fit in there? Would it be a good fit for you, and why? And then what would you offer to the company if you were hired? Okay, so this is just an overview of the things I just talked about. I give you sort of the length roughly of each paragraph, so that should add up to be 2 to 3 pages single spaced. Okay, one thing to keep in mind is that you're required to have 3 different sources. 3 is the minimum that you need to have for this report. Also keep in mind that the website for the company is a single source. Not every page that you go to on that website. So suppose you're looking at Aptera and you find their About page, and their About page has links to their history and their culture or whatever. That can't count as 2 different ones. All of Aptera.com is a single resource. So you're going to be looking for newspaper articles, you're going to be looking for maybe op-ed pieces. If you know someone in the company, you could interview them. You also could just call and ask the secretary some questions. All of those things are valid things so long as you cite them appropriately using IEEE. And I literally just said all of this, so you can look at the slide later when you're looking on your own. Okay, internet, like a Google search, is not a source, right? The source is whatever you find. Google is a search engine, not the source itself, okay? Wikipedia is also not a proper source, but it can help you find good sources. Again, read this one when you have a little bit more time. Okay, don't plagiarize. It's really tempting, especially in a shortened summer session, to simply copy the cute little paragraph they have all about their company and slap it into your paper. I find out. I'm really good at my job, and I will find out, and you will receive a 0 on this assignment, and other bad things could happen, so don't do it. Paraphrasing, you can read this later. Resume, okay. You're going to write a resume and application. Most of us know what those look like. You're going to document design lecture in week 2 is going to give some really good information on how to design your resume effectively. They're not getting you a job. They are getting you an interview, and then the interview is what gets you the job. Chapter 5 in your textbook. I'm really skimming this because I'm running out of time. Okay, so here are some things you could include in your resume. If you are really a sophomore and you haven't had a lot of job experience, consider putting in relevant coursework, for example, or school projects that were sort of beyond the typical school projects that you can show what you can do. Document design lecture is going to give you formatting information. Okay, so you're writing to a real person. It should do more than simply list what's in the resume. The resume serves as a list, right? But the resume doesn't tell the whole story. A cover letter is your opportunity to write in sentences and paragraphs about your experiences. So suppose you already had one internship. You list what you did in the resume, but most of you, technology and engineering sorts really like lists. And lists are great, but lists don't always tell the whole story. So this is your shot at explaining in more detail what you did in an internship, and show, don't just tell, show your potential employer that you've got the skills to be able to fulfill the position you're applying for. Okay, here is a sample letter. You'll note that this is very different than a memo. There's the sender's address, the date, recipient's address, salutation, body text, and closing. Okay, please note that in this particular example, you're writing to a woman, and you address her as Dear Ms. Smith, MS period Smith. Okay, in professional environments, you address women as Ms. unless you know that they happen to be a doctor. Like me, for example, I'm Dr. Rumsey or Professor Rumsey. Don't say Mrs., don't say Miss. Those are both things that are somewhat antiquated, and they assume the marriage of the person that you're addressing, and it's somewhat disrespectful. So just always use Ms. if you're not sure if they're a doctor, and everyone's that way, even keel, and no one gets upset. Okay, and then there's a summary, deadlines. That's it. Make sure you go back through these slides on your own time. Let me know if you need any help.